My my flagship student, as he has called himself. I think it's a great thing. That's what he is, and he is very interested in tugboats. He's interested in a lot of things, but he's very interested in tugboats, and this is his senior project on tugboats. Okay, Bryce, let's go ahead.
All right, here I go. Imagine yourself out on the open sea on a tugboat along with your crew, helping a ship in need or pulling or pushing a barge loaded with rail cars, sand, gravel, or garbage. That's right. Tugboats often push barges and ships, as well as tugging them. The tugboat, for its size, is the most powerful craft afloat, and tugs from around the world are the power behind the docks and waterways that make up our city's ports. Hello everyone, my name is Bryce Campbell, and this is my senior project on tugboats. I love tugboats because I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, a seaside city full of tugboats. Even though other port cities use lots of tugboats, I will always consider Seattle the tugboat capital of the world. I also watched a show on PBS Kids called Theodore Tugboat when I was little. I loved the shows where Theodore and his friends would come to the aid of other vessels in need, and through my research, I have found that Theodore Tugboat was pretty realistic. My interest in tugboats has grown a lot in the last couple years, from visiting tugboat companies on Harbor Island that are so close to where we live. As a graduating senior, I am interested in doing career exploration with local tugboat companies. I have researched the steps I will need to take to do this. I have also done a lot of research about the types of tugboats that are run here and in other parts of the country, including New York. I am going to tell you about the steps I will need to take in order to eventually work on tugboats. I am also going to show you some slides that Samantha Newlands, the project manager from Harley Marine Services, a company very close to Island Tug and Barge, sent me. Miss Newlands was very happy to hear that I was doing my senior project on tugboats. She wrote to Miss Hall that the industry needs more people, and those who have a passion for it are a sure fit. I will close by telling you about my visits and interviews with the wonderful people who run Island Tug and Barge. In order to work on a tugboat, you first have to be a deckhand or a mate. I researched what I would need to do to become a mate, and I found this information. 1, you must be a mate in order to become a tugboat captain. 2, before you become a mate, you have to become an able seaman. And 3, before you become an able seaman, you have to take a 5-day course designed for mariners at the entry-level position. It provides the trainee the knowledge, understanding, and proficiency to work safely and efficiently aboard today's tugboats. In order to pass the course, you have to show marlin spike seaman proficiency by actually tying various knots, bends, hitches, and splices. Here are some examples of what a mate might be expected to learn. Tying knots on boats is very important. You'll have to be able to secure loads and to tie off boats at docks. If you don't tie off right, a boat can capsize. There are 3 different types of tugboats. The ones we see here in Seattle are usually harbor and ocean-going tugs, but there are river tugboats as well. I think it would be great to be able to get some experience on all the different types of tugboats. I think tugboats are cool, and I have found through reading books about tugs that I am not alone in admiring them. Here is a quote from a book on Seattle tugboats. While square-rigged sailing ships, steamboats, and ferries, and even larger cruise and cargo-carrying vessels have made their mark on Puget Sound's maritime history, no other vessels have captured the imagination of shore-bound seafarers like tugboats. Beginning in the 1850s, when the first steam-powered tugboats arrived in the Sound from the East Coast via San Francisco, company owners and their crews competed fiercely for business, towing ships, log rafts, and barges. The magnetic attraction of powerful, tough tugs, both large and small, is explainable but enduring. New York City is also known for its tugboats. Watching tugs work in New York is part of the city experience there. Here's a quote I found on Tugboats in New York that shows how excited people across the country can get about tugboats. Tugboats are the workhorses of the greatest harbor in the world, easing massive ocean liners and garbage scows alike cleanly into their berths. Tugboats of New York capture the history and lore of themselves from their precursors in the early 1800s to their heyday in the 1950s. When more than 700 small but potent boats dotted the harbor, they showed themselves to be the most versatile of vessels, not only guiding large ocean-going ships safely into the harbor, but also conducting rescue operations and navigating vast quantities of oil, cement, and scrap iron through the traffic-clogged waters of New York Harbor. New York still gets credit for having lots of tugboats, but Seattle actually has more tugboat companies than New York, as you can see in the next slides here. And speaking of Seattle companies and our glorious tugboats here are the photos that were sent to me by Miss Samantha Newlands of Harley Marine Services. Some of Harley's boats are based in Alaska, and some go all over the West Coast. I'm just going to go through these vessels' names as we go through the slides, but if you would like more information on them, I have copies of a description page that I can share with you. This is the Bob Franco. This is the HMS Brat, or just the Brat. This is the Emery Zedell and Robert J. Biel. These are the sister tugs, the Leila Franco and the Michelle Sloan. And this is the Pacific Falcon. I'm thankful to Miss Newlands for encouraging my interest by sending me these beautiful photos. I look forward to meeting Miss Newlands and the other folks at Harley Marine Services. And now I'd like to tell you about the people I met at Island Tug and Barge. First, here is a photo of Mr. Dave Wells. I met Dave and some of his family members one day when I decided to walk down to Harbor Island and explore the maritime businesses there on my own. I've also recently taken a tour of Island Tug and Barge with Dave, and I had a phone interview with him. Dave told me that he started working on tugboats over 40 years ago. As a mate, he went on to be a tugboat captain. He is now one of the owners of Island Tug and Barge, and he has just been a dispatcher for the past 2 years. Both of his sons are now tugboat captains. For Dave, the most challenging aspect of working on tugboats has been the weather. He said you never know what can happen. When you are supporting other boats and the weather gets rough, your job gets tougher, especially if you are on a small barge with low horsepower. It's easy to build confidence on small barges, though according to Dave, he said that trips to Alaska can be challenging because you're on the boat for at least a 2-week stretch. He said that the most rewarding aspect of his work was all the time off he can get. And he said sometimes you're out there seeing scenery and whales and you're thinking, wow, I'm getting paid to do this? I asked Dave if Island Tug and Barge hired diverse people, like people with learning differences. He said that the company liked to find ways to work with people, and he told my father that I am welcome to visit and explore tugboat careers there. Dave said that the tugboat business is down in some places because the oil business is down in places like Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico. He said that although Island Tug and Barge likes to train their own deckhands and then send them to school to be captains, they have people now who work in the Gulf of Mexico who are coming to Seattle with the next level up of skills already. But Dave also said that all the tugboat companies on Harbor Island are like a big family. They are often in the position of having to work together and to help and support each other on difficult jobs. They still like the idea of developing their own local employees. Dave said that when he was a deckhand, he always wanted to be the best deckhand there ever was. If I get to be a deckhand, that's how I will feel too. Dave and I have something else in common. We both love Theodore Tugboat. During my interview with Dave, he told me that he was very impressed with the fact that the situation that Theodore deals with, the type of jobs he handles are very much alike that tugboat crews and captains deal with on a daily basis. I hope that you can tell from my presentation how enthusiastic I am about learning more about Seattle tugboats and the tugboat industry. Maybe someday, as you look down the Duwamish, you will see me, Bryce Campbell, on the deck or in the wheelhouse of a real-life Theodore tugboat. Thanks so much for listening to my presentation. Do you have any questions for me? Yes?
Have you been on a tugboat?
Yes, but I haven't, but it wasn't in motion. I've been on some tugboats before. Yes, Arlene?
Have you learned to tie any of the sailors' knots?
Why, no, I haven't.
Do the tugboats?
Yes, Mr. Bosco?
Hi, Bryce. Do the tugboats have galleys that they can cook food and all that kind of stuff? Or if you're in there for 2
Yes.
weeks?
Yeah, I've heard of the galley.
Good.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
One more.
Yes,
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Bosco?
Can I sign up too?
Yes, Tony.
Right, I've seen those off the West Seattle Bridge. Do they drive it from the very top there? The upper part?
You see that upper
Yeah.
deck in that picture there, for instance?
Uh-huh. That must be an extra bridge.
Ah,
Extra bridge so they can see over the
tall bars.
Yeah, similar to a crow's nest on a vintage sailing ship.
Oh, okay.
Ah, really?
But they
Yes.
don't operate it from there. Is there throttle and steering and all that kind of stuff way up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yes, there is. Right.
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is?
Okay.
Yes, Lucy?
Sightsee.
5.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes, Jacob?
What do you plan to do on a tugboat? Like, what do you want to do around tugboats? Just like, want to be a pilot? What do you want to do?
I can be an assistant co-captain. Or sailor.
And
Yes, Mr. Prinster.
Are there, you may not know this, are there jobs with the companies that aren't necessarily on the boats too that have to be done?
Well, there's dispatching. There's the dispatch.